Welcome back, everyone. My name is Morten. I have probably talked with a lot of you guys already and girls. I'm the customer success manager at Ucommerce. So it's basically my job to make sure that you have an awesome time working with the platform. And today I will talk on a more high-level basis on how to tackle the migration from version 8 to version 9. And I think we've seen plenty of code already, so my talk is going to be a slightly more high-level perspective on version 9. Clicker not working. There we go. Yes. So briefly, what we're going to go through is what's up with V9. We've already seen most of it, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time in repeating all that one more time. We're going to talk a little bit more about how to actually approach the upgrade, why you should upgrade, and actually also a very important point, should you upgrade right now? And then I'm going to dive a little bit into some of the learnings that we get from our support channels about some of the technical challenges that we have seen when you guys have done the migration and the upgrade. And then a very short approach on the migration path. I know you have your own best practices ways of working with everyday development, but here's a few points that we believe is important. And if you have any questions during me talking, just type them in the chat, and my lovely colleagues will make sure that they are brought to my attention. So feel free. With all this set aside, I know that upgrading can be a pain. We put a lot of effort into our installation framework and making sure that it should be a matter of just applying the new NuGet package or installing through the UIs. But of course, things can go wrong from time to time. We will not neglect that at all. But luckily, customer success are here to rescue you. Me and my 3 awesome colleagues, we work very, very hard every day to make sure that documentation and all the things around the platform are also kept up to date. We have a lot of legacy carrying over from the past, but at least we try very, very hard every day. So feel free to reach out. We will be more than happy to help you, because if you don't have success, we don't have success either. Good. So what's up with V9? Just to set the stage, Condo is the new back office. We've just heard more about that, and then we have Bold, the new APIs set in the world to do performance. We've also heard about that, and it's mostly the second part here that will give you headache when you need to port from V8 to V9, because everything broke just a little bit, but everything broke, and that's what I want to address a little bit about here. So the foundations to the APIs and the design principles about the APIs, we've also heard something about that today, but I want to repeat some of it because it's very, very important when we talk about the foundation, what has changed from 8 to 9. It's important to know that in depth when you want to port, because it will help you in that work. So going to 9, we will still have an indexing process that has not changed. Besides, the performance of it has been improved drastically. The SQL Server still remains as the main storage for your data, even though that SQL Server are no longer the main presenter of the data, which it was previously in a combination with RavenDB, of course. So we, of course, swapped away RavenDB and introduced Lucene, and not tomorrow, but in the near future, Elasticsearch, going from 9.4. And in your porting of the platform, only the top-level APIs have changed. Everything else remains in its regular place, going from pipelines to marketing foundation, transactions, payment methods. All that are still the good old platform you already know. So it's isolated to the new APIs used to serve catalog data for your visitors. So a little bit about the design principles. We have learned today that we are working in a safe by default manner. So previously, if you wanted to, you could throw a hand grenade at your feet and blow away your legs and your feet and drain the performance very easily. We have worked very hard on that not to happen unless you really, really want to. You probably don't, but it's way more safe for you to present data for your visitors, because we will make sure that you don't tank the performance out of the box. It's search driven, so we have a much more feature rich set of capabilities, going from full text search to suggestions and fuzzy search and all that good stuff built directly into the APIs. No more lazy loading. That's one of my favorite things. It was very easy to just dot your way out of the data model. Let's get some categories. Let's get some order lines for that order. It's less convenient to work with now, because you have to explicitly say when you need something. But again, it will. It's so easy to tank the performance in the old lazy loading days. Now everything is only referenced via GUIDs, which will also make the transition a little less smooth, as you have to rewrite a lot of that stuff. And my absolute favorite part, which is the most important thing that also ties in with the lazy loading stuff, is that we don't have any entities surfaced in the new catalog APIs. If you work with RavenDB and faceted search and search in general with RavenDB, and you use those document models, you would find it very odd to combine those two worlds, as the entities were used in the top level APIs, whereas when you work with the search library, you would have a different set of models to work with. So all that has been unified, and those are probably the most pleasant thing about upgrading. You will have a much nicer experience. We also saw a lot of cool examples on how to actually work with the new APIs. Good. With all that in place, now the sales pitch are over. Should everyone upgrade? Well, of course, we would love that everyone go to V9 straight ahead, but to make V9 accessible for everyone, we had to take some hard decisions to take some of the things away that we want to support, but we felt it was less important over actually getting it out to the world. So some of the things to consider when you look at your solutions: should I actually upgrade my solution today? So solutions built on top of apps and extensions that other agencies have made. If you have based your website on top of those, you need to make sure that app has also been made compatible with V9. Unfortunately, that's not what we see today. So some of those that have been using one of my apps, for example, to do bundle products, you will not be able to get that feature in the new platform, because we're waiting for some of the extensibility parts to arrive. So if you have that, you will probably not want to upgrade unless you want to rewrite all that from scratch, and you probably won't. And solutions built with UI customizations in general, it's very important to state that you don't need an app in order to do UI extensions. If you have made your own UI extensions, particularly in the catalog foundation, you won't be able to port that over to the new UIs just yet. We need to wait for extensibility, but that will also arrive, as you just heard. So yeah, you need to wait with that. And scale solutions, probably most of you have been working with Lucene. That's not a scalable by nature. You need to wait for Elasticsearch to arrive. So those are the three main blockers for you to go to V9. Otherwise, we would love to help you out in that process. So go ahead and do it and reach out when you run into trouble. So those are the particular topics. I wanted to also address a few of the technical changes that you need to be aware of. So everything broke. When you upgrade the platform, you will see that everywhere where you reference Ucommerce, that will now be red error places. There's no binary compatibility at all. So even though that you do the upgrade, if that goes smooth without you updating a code path, your site will not function because there's no binary compatibility. And that's because we renamed all the namespaces and all the assemblies from capital UC to capital U and a lowercase c, mainly because Soren's OCD prevented him from looking at the code without almost crying. So we had to take care of that so he could also be happy. The entities are no longer there in the top level APIs. So a lot of you guys were dependent heavily on those. You have to rewrite all those to use the new search models. Fortunately, the port is not that big of a deal because what used to be there is still there, but in a slightly different way. So it's not like the fundamental way of working with the platform has completely changed. The transaction foundation and marketing foundation are left in its place, even though that it changed namespace and it also changed assembly. The last part, you probably won't even notice that, but it did. Transaction foundation and marketing foundation are renamed, but if you take a look and compare the old APIs to the new, you will almost spot that the only thing that changed was that instead of passing in entities, we pass in GUIDs. So the port in the actual top level APIs should be quite easy, even though there will probably be between 50 or 100 places where you need to change stuff. But the signatures are almost the same. We also favor IOC and dependency injection. So the static APIs that we used to have on Ucommerce API and Ucommerce.runtime, you won't see those anymore. So you have to either bridge our IOC container with MVC or whatever other technology you're using, or explicitly call Object Factory to retrieve those services. And those are the new APIs. The top level APIs are strictly in the IOC. They used to be that before, but you had a static reference. That's gone now. So you cannot use that. It has to be done explicitly. But it's a change for the better, in my opinion. Also, the URL schema has changed. We got a lot of feedback that people were unhappy with the URLs, and we could understand why. So that has changed. So it's more elegant now. It still rewrites that drives this underneath the surface. It still relies on the catalog context to be able to retrieve that data based on query string parameters. But we still take care of everything, but you have to report and change the URLs, and that might be something that you need to talk with your clients about. These are the new URLs, and maybe lay out a plan if you need to do some redirects or something like that. Because everywhere where you reference the old URLs, those will not work anymore. And then we have the active record pattern that still remains in its place. It's the ability to load entities from the database directly on the models itself via a static accessor. It's still there. I personally wanted to get rid of it, but it meant that we had to touch a lot in the old UIs, so we decided to leave it there still. But if you still use it, go ahead and rewrite it now. If I catch you using it, I will point it out and I will kick you over your knees. So now you're warned. Yeah, because we don't want that SQL access anymore. We created the whole new experience with the API so that you could have fast data, and using that API will not get you there. So one of the most important things that you have to do when you port your code base is to implement a new index definition, which ties into to the new Lucene provider we have and the new search APIs. So your index definitions are the thing that where you define what are the fields that I want in my index, what are the fields for my prices, what are my facets. So the new APIs that Søren presented a few minutes ago, you have to have one of those. Otherwise, you will not be able to present your data for the visitors. And previously, you had the ability to define directly on the fields if they were part of faceted search or not. You cannot do that via the UI anymore. You have to have that in your index definition as well. So those are probably the one thing that needs to be there before everything is going to work again. So you will be able to just migrate your code base and see everything working, but on the storefront you will not see all the data that you expected if you did not create that index definition. Right. So a little bit about the migration path and what we have seen to be important when we talk about that is oops, there we go. First of all, you need to figure out if you fall into one of the following categories, and you should wait, which are mostly the apps and the UI extensions. When you have decided that you want to go, you need to identify the extensions that require you more than just an average control F for find and replace, capital UC to capital U. So those are particular extensions to pricing, where prices previously was loaded via the SQL server. Those are now powered by the indexed prices instead. So that can create some confusions and maybe some rewrites that you need to do. And of course, the top-level APIs under Ucommerce.api and Ucommerce.runtimes, one of the two most used extensions points besides pipelines, they are not there anymore. So you need to either extend the new APIs or implement them from scratch instead. And that will probably also require some time. As you were using the entities to do your stuff, now you only have GUIDs or search models for references instead. So those are the old top-level APIs that are no longer there. That was one of the most common extension points used. And then, of course, when you upgrade the NuGet packages, it will reveal all the breaking changes, and there will be a lot, as I said. But don't worry, it's only small, subtle changes like the capital UC to only capital U. And then one of the more annoying ones that I have experienced on my own fingers as well when I tried to port a solution was price groups, because price groups is a concept in Ucommerce that sort of flows between both the catalog foundation and the transaction foundation. Even though that we try to not combine the two things, price group is a concern that affects both things. So even though the transaction library still uses the old entities for your purchase orders and for your shipments, from time to time you need to pass in a price group, but you won't have that in your new APIs because it's search models instead. But you would have the GUID, so you would have to load that from SQL, and that feels a little uncomfortable. But hopefully that's one thing that will be fixed in the near future as well. And then lastly, all the configuration files are some of the things that will not be caught on a compile time, as those are XML files living inside your solution next to all the code. Those are gonna require a change as well. So if you are in a situation where you're using custom.config, port that over to apps folders instead, because that will give you a much cleaner set of configuration files. And then the last thing that I have talked with at least half of you guys and girls is the tool called Luke, which is going to be your new best friend to peek into the indexes when you need to figure out what is going on in my solution. Everything is Lucene indexes, and Luke is a tool that can help you peek into those and see what's what's going on if you don't get the expected result. I think that's it. If you have any questions, we have a Q&A session coming up right in a few minutes, but if you have a quick one for me now, go ahead. Otherwise, reach out via support or wherever. We would love to chat with you guys in customer success. So thank you for listening, and I hope you got some good information out of this.